Good morning, and welcome to Calvary Covenant Church Online. My name is Kendall Churchill, and as always, it is so good to be with you. Are you feeling tired today? I know I am. I am legit just sort of mentally just kind of fried, just kind of burnt out. And I think a lot of that's because we are in the post-Christmas slump, that time where everyone just needs a day or two to rest, to kind of regather, recoup from everything that's been going on. I mean, it's the end of the year. There's been so much going on, and so at the endings, people tend to get pretty tired. Around Christmas, we have all of the decorating, we have the shopping and card writing, we have the gathering and cooking and baking of cookies, and all the other extras that come with the holidays, all the things that make it special take a lot of work. And so when we get through it, when we just kind of inched and make it past the finish line, we go, oh wow, I am just beat. And so as we finish up our holiday traditions and practices, as we come to the end of 2020, we're just sort of tired. And maybe you aren't feeling ready quite yet for 2021. 2020 has been such an exhausting year. You just like, I just need a week or two to catch up, and then maybe I'll be ready to face it. And while the chapter is coming to an end, the story isn't over yet. That 2020 is over, but we're beginning a new year. And with new beginnings, our imaginations tend to run wild. Whenever we come across the unknown, what's going to happen? What's going to the next chapter, the next year going to be like? Whether it's because we're having new jobs, new homes, new family members, a new school, a new hobby, a new recipe, whatever the new thing might be, there's this, ooh, this might be cool, or, oh, I don't know how this is going to turn out. And we are just sort of left with this mix of anxiety and anticipation. And these endings and beginnings that we face put us into tension. There's all these mixed feelings about it, and we have to make these decisions on what are we going to keep with us from the old to bring into the new, and what things do we leave behind in the past. Kind of like when at Christmas time we receive presents, and oftentimes, we get new socks, and these new socks are great because they replace our old ones, the socks that had holes in them. Or perhaps you get clothes that replace the clothes that don't fit anymore. Maybe you've changed in shape, or things have gone out of style. Some of your clothes you change at Christmas because you've gotten new stuff, but some of your old clothes you keep as well. You don't just throw away your whole wardrobe at once. And so we have to make decisions about what memories, traditions, objects make the cut and what gets left behind. And we see this tension about endings and beginnings throughout the Bible, but today we're going to be looking at one particular example about how when the Israelites left Egypt, and how that kind of was this beginning and end, and they had to make a lot of big decisions. Now, just a quick recap of the story. The Israelites, they were in Egypt for hundreds of years, enslaved. They grew in numbers to be a pretty mighty nation, but they were enslaved. They didn't have any real power, no real wealth. And so God didn't forget his people. He brought a leader up named Moses. While he was older in age and his brother Aaron helped him, they went to Pharaoh and said, let my people go. And when Pharaoh said no, God worked miracles, bringing all these plagues upon Pharaoh and Egypt. And as plague after plague after plague came, it kind of wore down the resolve of the Egyptians, but it built up the strength and the confidence of the Israelites. Wow, this God of our ancestors really does care about us. And so when it finally came that Pharaoh said, fine, you may leave, you are free, they were ready. They were ready to go. And so they left Egypt, they crossed the Red Sea, they went into the wilderness to get ready to go into the promised land that had been promised to their ancestors. And so as they left Egypt behind, as they were leaving their days of slavery in the past, they were bringing along certain things with them, but really they weren't quite ready yet for the promised land. Just because they had left Egypt didn't mean that they were now ready for their new beginning. There was this time that was just pregnant with possibility, that They were going to be a new people with a new identity, that they could do and be anything, really. But this can be overwhelming, especially to people who haven't had much. And so they ended up succumbing to the fear of the unknown. It was so overwhelming. And so as they wandered the wilderness, as God provided for them, they sometimes lost their way. They didn't always do what God called them to. They messed up. When Moses went up to get the 10 Commandments and interact with God, the people of Israel kind of got anxious and said, what are we going to do? Well, let's build some idols, some golden calves to worship instead. When they got hungry or thirsty or didn't know what was going to happen, they started to complain instead of asking for help. And when they finally got to the promised land, they sent in spies and they came back really afraid, saying, I don't know if we can go in there. There's other people there. I don't know if we can face them. This is overwhelming. I think we should just head back. They were just really fearful of this new land. When they left Egypt, they were leaving a lot behind. They were leaving plagues. They were leaving behind slavery. They were leaving behind those restrictions connected to that. They were leaving behind their jobs, their disappointments. They were leaving behind death. They were leaving behind a whole lot of really bad things. But God was asking for them to leave other things behind too. God asked them to leave their old identities, leave behind their old mindsets. You see, when they were going to go into this new promised land, into this new time, this new place, they were going to have to leave behind the things that didn't fit anymore. It was a time for change. They couldn't be their old selves anymore. They couldn't have the identity of being slaves of the Egyptians. They needed to be God's people, free people, chosen, holy people. They couldn't be the people of the past anymore. They needed to be God's current people. And this new life meant a new way of life. They couldn't think and act the same way as before. Certain things of the past came with, but a lot of it had to be left behind. Now, this isn't to say that they journeyed into the wilderness or into the promised land unequipped or alone. I mean, God, in fact, told the Egyptians to give the Israelites great wealth when they were leaving Egypt. So they were going with all sorts of blessings from God, and they weren't alone because God traveled with them. It said that he traveled with them a pillar of fire by night and cloud by day, that they were never alone. The presence of God was with them, and God provided for them whatever needs they may have. They were in the wilderness, but God provided water. God provided food, both the manna and the quail, that he gave them strength to face their enemies. Whenever all these other armies would come, God would help overcome them. When they were fleeing from the Egyptians, oh no, we've come to the Red Sea, God had performed a miracle to help divide it so they could cross. And more than anything, God was trying to shape in them a new identity. When he gave them the laws, both the 10 Commandments and all 613 laws, he was doing this so they could know, here's who you are. Here's how to be my people. Here's how you can be holy. Right now, you're probably a bit tired. Tired about something. Tired and just ready to be done. You're ready for that next thing. You are ready to get out of that Egypt towards that new promised land, because Egypt has gotten pretty tiring. This might be some sort of responsibility you have, some sort of relationship, identity, habit, mindset. Maybe you're just like, I am so done with 2020. If I never have to think about it again, that would be A-okay. We've been stuck in Egypt long enough. Now the Israelites, they understood this. They were ready to go. They wanted to leave a bad situation for a better one. But God said it's not just enough to leave one situation for another. You need to change with it as well. You cannot bring your former way of life with you. You cannot be your old self in this new land. Moving forward means you need to change too. It's not just a change of scenery. It's a change of identity. It's a change of how you think, how you behave, how you see and behave in this world. When a new land is shown to us, we're left with a choice. How shall we now live? Whatever it is that you are looking forward to, whatever you're wanting to leave behind and move to something new, whatever that may be, are you ready to make that journey? Will you accept the cost? Will you be ready to change? Or are you just going to cling to what is familiar? A lot of the Israelites, they said, oh, I don't know about this whole wandering the wilderness thing, about being our own people. Why don't we go back to Egypt? It was a lot simpler. We knew what we were doing. We had food. Life was just fine. It wasn't great. It wasn't perfect, but at least it was familiar. There's a lot of temptation to go back to the past. And so when you're faced with something new, when that door is open, are you going to walk through it? Or are you going to simply say, oh, this seems like too much? And if you are going to take that step of change, of growth, of development, if you're going to follow through that door that God has opened for you, are you ready to make the change in yourself as well? How do you need to change? Is there some habit of yours that doesn't fit in a new life? Is there some way of behaving, of thinking, of treating others that just doesn't belong anymore? It might be time to leave that behind. I think we oftentimes think of the new year as a new beginning, and I will lose 30 pounds, I'll read a book a week, I will walk 5 miles a day, I will start journaling, I will do all these things. We have these great aspirations of the people we want to be, but we don't make the habit. We don't make that change of identity. We simply just try, and when it gets hard, we want to go back to Egypt. What is it that God is calling you to go through, to become? And what does that mean you're going to have to leave behind? Like those holy socks or stretched out clothes that no longer fit. Some things are best left behind. There's a word that I really enjoy from Africa called Sankofa. And Sankofa means looking back while moving forward. That there are things from the past that we absolutely need to leave behind. That the past sometimes is best in the past. But sometimes as we move into the future, into these new beginnings, we're called to remember, to learn, to choose things that are worth keeping. You don't throw away your whole wardrobe again, just the things that are no longer appropriate. Some things from the past are good. The Israelites, when they left Egypt and went to the promised land, it wasn't like they just completely forgot about their enslavement for hundreds of years. Instead, there is this thing that they recall to this day, a practice called Passover, where they remember how God saved them from slavery, how God provided and led them and cared for them. The story of the past is remembered for today and carried into the future. The pain and the story have been redeemed, and so it's become part of that identity of us today. Holding on to what is good, giving thanks for the blessings and the blessers of the past. As you think of your new beginnings in 2021, as you think of those hopes and dreams, I want you to also take some time to positively process 2020, to think what has been good this year, because God has been and is at work making a holy people for himself. 2020 has not been a wash. In fact, in this time of change and disruption, a lot of growth and new beginnings have emerged. How has God been at work in your life? What has God been doing behind the scenes, changing your heart and mind? What is God doing today to prepare you for tomorrow? Friends, we are at the finish line right now. We are like a college student finishing their finals right now. We are coming to the end of the chapter. We are finishing things up right now. We're so close, and we're so tired. But no matter how we might feel in the moment, Christmas reminds us that this is a new beginning. That as God came to be with us, the world was changed forever. As Jesus grew, as he called disciples, as he taught, as he performed miracles, as he was crucified, died, was buried, and then was resurrected. As he led us into a new way of life, a new future, a new community, a new hope, and a new love. As we are people of Christmas, as we are people of the resurrection, we are people of new beginnings. It's why when we are converted, we have it as a new life, a second birth, because we believe in new beginnings and we believe that they are so important. And so while the work is exhausting, while the days are long and the future is a little unclear, while the past may sting, we move forward because God is with us. God has led us out of slavery. He has led us through the wilderness, and he is guiding us to a promised land. And so today I invite you to breathe. Take a breath. Rest. Relax. Take some time today to reflect. Reflect on this year. Reflect on this journey. Reflect on where you have been, on the doors that are now open, and get ready for tomorrow. Friends, I send you out this day with this blessing. May God the Father lead you patiently into your new identity. May Jesus Christ, his Son, redeem the pains of your past to equip you for the future. And may the Holy Spirit give you peace in your endings and strength in your beginnings. Go in peace. Amen.